All right, hello and welcome to part 4 of the Microsoft Access tutorial. So in this tutorial we're going to continue working with the same database that we have created in the previous 3 parts. So reminder, what we did so far in the part 1, 2 and 3 is we created 3 tables. Table clients, employees and also a junction table within them where I record details of work that my employees are doing for my clients. So that part was done. Today we're going to start talking about input, how input into the database systems or general systems is done. So in Microsoft Access or any other system for that matter, that is done by the use of forms. So let's get down to the specifics. Let's open up the Microsoft Access, the file that we have created at the end of our part 3 of this video tutorial. If you remember, we ended up with these 3 tables: clients, employees, and work completed, and they are linked together. So what I want to do is create a tool that will allow my users, like me or other people who work for the organization, to easily enter data into these 3 tables. So let's go ahead and open up table clients, for example. Table clients has right now 2 records about company ABC Limited Liability Corporation and about company XYZ Incorporated. Now, how I created these records is very simple. I just click in one of those fields, such as client name, and start typing name, street, city, etc., etc. Not a single computer-based information system does it this way. So in other words, in a typical organization, any organization, simple users, people who are not closely familiar with information systems, are not allowed to type data directly into the database tables. They simply don't have access to these tables. So today we're going to design a mechanism how users, simple people like you and me, can enter data into the information systems. So I'm going to close this table and on the go ahead and click on the tab Create. As you know from previous tutorials, all the things that we have to create inside Microsoft Access program are located on the tab Create. So for example, tables that we designed and created in previous parts, a group of buttons that allows us to do manipulations with tables is right here. So today we're going to deal with forms. So here is the group that deals with forms, and we're going to start actually with a very simple example. I want to create a form that will allow me to manipulate records in the table clients. So in the left side of my of Microsoft Access navigational pane, in the group of tables, I'm going to select table clients, and just simply with one click of the button, this button form, I'm going to create this form that will allow me to enter data. So first of all, let's see how the form works. So on the left side of the design tab, if you remember, there is a button that has multiple options. So right now I'm in the layout view. I'm going to explain a little bit later what that means. But let's switch to the form view. Form view is pretty much operational view of the form. In other words, this is how the users see the form when they work with it. Let's double click on the table clients. If you remember, we had this field: client ID, client name, street, city, state, zip, and the phone number. And as you can see here on this screen, on this form, I have exactly these fields: client ID, client name, street, city, state, zip, and the phone number. So in other words, these elements that I see in front of me, they correspond to the columns of the client's table, and they are linked directly to these columns, and they display records one at a time. So for example, right now what I see in front of me is record number 1, client ID 1, client name ABC Limited Liability Company. Here's the street, city, state, zip, and the phone number. Now this weird object, I will explain later what that is, but I can navigate between the records in the table clients very easily. As you can see at the bottom of Microsoft Access, I have some sort of the navigational tool, right? So these buttons, for example, allow me to browse between the records back and forth. So this button says next record, so if I click, you can see that the content that I see in front of me on the screen changes. So now I'm looking at client number 2, XYZ, and their address. I can navigate back to the previous records. Well, there is not much actually to do right now because there are only 2 records, right? I can create, so in other words, right now what I see is the content of my database, and I can browse line by line. I can, for example, create new records. How do I do that? Well, if I navigate to the next record, that would be number 2, and then click next one more time, or alternatively click this button that says new record blank. Let's do that. It will clear out the screen and all the fields are going to be empty. So I can simply click in any of the fields and start typing. For example, for the client ID, I want to type 3. And you can hear that there is a sound, there is like a warning notification from me saying I can't do that. And at the bottom, Microsoft Access actually tells me control can be edited. It's bound to the auto-numeric field client ID. So that means that this field client ID is linked directly into the attribute field in my column, in my data table clients, and that column has auto-numeric data type. So in other words, Microsoft understands that if the field that is connected to this specific text box right here, client ID, is auto-numeric, then users are not allowed to edit that. Microsoft Access will manage that by itself. So I click to the into the client name and type something new like QWERTY Limited Liability Company. So that's my new client that I'm going to record. And they are located on the street, for example, 31 2nd Street. Then I click, oh, and by the way, I can navigate between the fields by not just by clicking with the mouse, but by pressing the tab button. So if I click, if I hit tab one time, my cursor jumps into the next field. If I want to go backwards, it's pretty much standard across all applications or web pages. I want to hold Shift and hit tab one more time. So Shift tab goes backwards, tab goes forward, Shift tab goes backwards. Okay, so I go into the field city and I type Norfolk. State, of course, VA, Virginia. If you remember, this field is limited to only 2 characters, so if I try to type something else, it will not allow me to do that. And the zip code, I have no idea what the zip codes are there, so 22222. Just being simplistic here. Next field holds the phone number for this company, 757-111-2233, for example. Okay, and if I hit if I click on this button, next record, you can see that the fields are cleared and we move to the next record. So it's record number 4 out of 4, which is blank right now, so I didn't enter anything. So hopefully my previous record has been saved. Well, let's find out. I'm going to open up the table clients by double clicking, and this is my QWERTY LLC in Norfolk, Virginia, 31 2nd Street that I have just entered. And notice that client ID is set to number 3. That is auto-numeric field in action. So in other words, using this form, I can create new records, as you've seen. Let's try saving that. So click on the Save button. Save as, well, it's only natural that I call this form clients because it allows me to edit clients. And I click OK, and notice what happened on my left side of Microsoft Access. everything else that I've done so far was placed under the group of tables. And I can collapse this group or expand it. Now that I have saved my new form, I have one new entry, one new group actually, right, forms, and there is only one form right now under this group, clients, that I just created. So I started new group of objects in Microsoft Access. All right, now let's get to the details of what forms look like and what they consist of. Right now, if you remember, I'm in the form view, right? So on the home tab, button view, I'm right now in the form view. So in other words, I see the form as if I am the user of the form. Let's switch to the design view. So click on that option, and immediately the view changes a little bit. And you can see that form actually is a pretty complicated object. Okay, so first of all, let's start slow. First of all, form consists of three major parts. Number one, there is a form header. So in other words, this is the part where that shows up on the top of the form. Then there is a section, and you can click on this selector that basically selects the entire section of the form. So this is details section, and you can see that all the fields that we saw on the screen when we were working with records are here, and there are other elements right next door to that. So we're going to get in a minute to what these things do. And then this weird object that I was pointing out right here, it says table.work_completed. So this is the detail section. And then the third section of the form is at the bottom, which is a form footer. But as far as I can see, there is nothing in there. So it's empty. I can scroll down and you can see that there's nothing in there. Okay, so let's take a look at what these weird elements are. Well, number one, everything that we did, so let's switch back to the form view. Everything that we did is user input, right? So as a user of this program, for example, I just entered information about client number 3, Quart LLC. So I clicked in this field and I typed new client name, and that was saved inside the database. So let's switch back to the design view. How form accepts the user input? Well, it's doing so through the use of these elements. They're called controls. So here on the tab design, you can see that there is a group called controls. So what are the controls? What are the at least major or typical controls? This control, if we click on this control, I don't know what that means, quite honestly, what this control is. So what I can do is, right here there's a button that says property sheet. So click on this button, and over here you have properties of this selected user control. And you can see that this object that we have just clicked, which is called client ID, is type of this object is text box. So what are the text boxes? Text boxes are just elements where users can click, type some text, and these things will be saved. Whatever they type will be saved inside the table that is linked to this text box. So all these fields pretty much that I saw and used on my form are text boxes. You can kind of click through them and see that they're all text boxes. Alright, so let me switch back to the form view. So all of these things are text boxes. Now what are these and what is that on the top of the form? Let's switch back to the design view. Now I'm going to click on this element that says client ID right next door on the left from the text box client ID, and I can see that the type of this element is label. So what is label? Label is another control that you can move around, place anywhere on the form pretty much, and label is responsible for just showing information to the user. It's non-editable. You can't click inside of that and change the content of the label, so it's just for show and tell pretty much. Okay, so this element that we see in the form header, you can click on that and immediately find out that this is also a label. Labels I can change easily as a user. For example, let's say I want this label to read not just simply clients, but say I wanted to read form to enter and edit clients. Okay, and not only that, but I want these words to be bolded and underlined. So I'm going to select all that. And there are a couple of ways how you can do that actually. So a simple way is just simply go on the Home tab, and there you can find the same edit and formatting buttons as you saw in Microsoft Word or Microsoft Excel. So Microsoft actually makes it very consistent across their products, which is very cool. Once you get familiar with that, they look just the same everywhere else. So, for example, I can make it bold, and I can make it underlined. So I'm not sure if bold worked. Apparently, yes, it did. And underlined right there. Alternatively, what I can do is inside my property sheet. So every control, be it text box like client ID or a label, it has a lot of properties. So I'm going to switch to the tab Format. Right now I'm looking at the label, and this label is selected. I can tell it because it has like yellow border around that. And all I have to do really is to find the necessary control, necessary property. This is just the list of properties of my control, and set it to what I want. So instead of just clicking here and make it underlined, I can find the proper description here in the list of properties. Let's see, font underline. Right now it's set to no, but if I set it to yes, then you can see that immediately it underlines my my font. So a couple of ways how you can edit, of course, through the Home tab and through the property sheet. Now, you can see also that properties, there are a lot of different properties, right? The list is very long. So not all of these properties you will see over here on the Home tab or any other tab probably. So some of them you have to pretty much go into the property list and find this property and change that by just setting it up like I did. Well, let's see what happened actually. Did it change anything visually? So now I switch from my design view. I was designing my form, right? I switched from design view to the form view, and you can see that this label is bolded and underlined just like I wanted. Okay, so now you're kind of getting an idea of what form looks like in the design view, what are parts and elements, and how I can mess around with different parts and elements in order to make them appear how I want. Okay, so let's do this. Let's just experiment. Client ID, well, client name. Client name, as you see in the form view, it has the underscore, and that part is the label, right? Can I get rid of underscore so that it looks like more or less human? Let's try that. I switch to the design view and click into the label, not to the text box, but to the label, and get rid of the underscore, just replace it with the space. So now if I go back to the form view, now my client name label displays client space name for me, so without any underscores. Let's see if this trick will work if I do the same thing with my control client name text box, which is right next door to it. So go back to the design view, and you can see that this is my text box, right? So I'm going to get rid of the underscore here, and I'm going to switch back to the form view, and you can see that Microsoft Access does not show me any decent information. It shows me # name question mark. In other words, Microsoft Access is confused. It says, well, I understand that you want me to display here the content of the field client space name, and I just cannot find this field. I cannot resolve what is that you're trying me to do. And you can see there is a question mark over here, which means that there is a warning error that's going on, right? The reason why this behavior is so different is labels are not linked to anything. Labels are placed on the form just for display purposes. I can change the content of the label as I want, and it will not affect anything pretty much. Okay. Now, text boxes typically are linked to the field of the database, and that link should be precise. So in other words, when I erase this underscore in the client underscore name and replace that with a space, Access is trying to look up the column called client space name in the table clients, and it didn't find anything. So therefore, it didn't display anything. So I'm going to replace the space with underscore back. And now that I did so, if I switch to the form view, you can see that now it displays the client name from the database for me. In other words, the bottom line of that is you can do whatever you want with labels, but do not change these names inside the text boxes, because text boxes are linked, or programmers use the word bounded to the specific fields in your tables, and that link or bind should be very exact, very precise. So the name of your field in the text box should coincide exactly with the name of the column in the database. Okay, but that doesn't mean that you cannot edit what's inside the text box, how it looks, and we're going to get to that actually in the next part of this video. So I'm going to stop right here.